Thanks for being here. If you like new stories, be sure to subscribe to my channel. In today's episode, we find out that your wife is going behind your back discussing her cheating plan. Enjoy the show. No need, Jerry heard, recognizing the voice of his wife's friend Rose. He just got back from playing golf on Saturday, a bit earlier than planned. He looked out the open sliding patio door and saw his wife and her 3 friends lounging by the pool and sipping mimosas. Diana, his wife, was lying on a sun lounger with her back to the door. Rose was to her right, redhead Steph was directly in front of Diana, and Cheryl was to her left, lying on a towel by the pool. He stayed away so he couldn't be seen, so he could listen. Sorry, Rose, but that's all I can think about. I felt it, and I can't stop thinking about how it would feel. You all talk about it, his wife replied. I'll be careful, so Jerry won't find out. I won't be like Candace. Candace is their friend, always telling the ladies endless stories of seduction and incredible nights. He'll know. They always find out. You know what happened to me. Candace is a total fraud. I've been divorced for 3 years now, and I regret every stupid decision I made because of her. She's my downfall, and now she'll be yours too. He heard his wife say that it'd be one time, and that's it. I need to know if size really matters, like Candace says. That's not true, Cheryl added. If you must know, I did have an affair in college, but after the initial passion wore off, it turned out that he was just another guy who didn't want anything other than intimacy. Then I met Bert and realized he could love me better than anyone else, with the greatest dignity. A guy with a lot of dignity exists only because of his dignity. He's not interesting at all. She took a sip of her drink. It's just a sporting event, and that's all. Damn it, no romance, nothing at all. Steph, who's never been married, added, I warned you when you wanted to join our bachelorette party, so you never get attached to any guy you dance with. You might just want to dance, but they come to the club to hook up. The thing is, you started an affair with this guy. You're dating him, whether you realize it or not. I'm not dating him. We're just having a good time, drinking, dancing, and enjoying ourselves, Diana said, until last night. He told me he has great dignity and wants to have a night with me. I'd been acting normal until he showed up. Now that I've held it, I want to know what it feels like. She smiled. I can't stop thinking about him. Rose sat down and leaned against Diana. Understand, sister, Candace doesn't get or have incredible every night. She's just sitting at home like me, lonely. I know this, and that's where you're heading. I'd do anything for a guy like Jerry. He's nice and friendly to everyone. He's got a solid business, and he's a great dad. She stood up and tied a towel around her waist. This is your funeral, but I'm telling you now that when Jerry throws you away, I'm going to do everything I can to make him mine. Diana looked up at her friend. You don't understand. I just have to do this one time. Rose looked a bit down. It won't just happen once, and that's it. It doesn't happen like that. I know, I've been there. Jerry was pretty upset when he listened to this conversation. His wife of over 20 years was about to have an affair with some guy she met at a club. He thought this in a fit of anger. He pushed the screen aside, knocking it off the railing, and rushed towards the pool. Diana felt a hand grab her left arm and pull her up. She turned to face her husband. The rage in his eyes was obvious to everyone. He grabbed her wedding and engagement rings with his right hand and pulled them off her left. My rings, she cried. Well, you're no longer my wife, so today, you can go have fun. Angry, he threw the rings over the roof onto the street in front of their house. Go have sex with your boyfriend with great dignity." He was shaking with anger and rage. "I heard the whole thing. I knew you weren't into bachelorette parties, but I couldn't believe you were dating some loser from a bar." Diana fell onto the concrete, crying. Steph stood up first and tried to console Jerry. "Chill out, Jerry. She really didn't do anything wrong." "Nonsense," he answered. "You all knew what would happen when you started taking her to parties, especially you, Steph." He pointed his index finger at her. "Since you're all here, help me pack her things and get them out of my house." Cheryl smiled, the way she used to control her husband. "Come on, you can't be serious." She gently put her hand on his chest and suddenly found herself staggering and falling backwards into the pool. Jerry, having pushed Cheryl into the pool, turned away. "I'll be out for a while, and when I return, I don't want to find her here." "Guess what? Steph has a new roommate." Jerry went into the house and then came back through the door because I heard you too, and I'm looking forward to our dates. But know that I won't have a night with you until the divorce is final. These won't be your friends anymore. Isn't that unacceptable to you?" Rose stood up, feeling proud. "No, not at all." She couldn't help but smile. She was a real find. She was confident that she had learned from her past mistakes. A week later, she got her wish at Friday's bachelorette party. Rose watched Diana greet her boyfriend. She knew him. He was one of those nasty guys who go to clubs looking for married women. She knew he had once been the roommate of the man who had seduced her many years ago. It was something she would always regret. She knew that tonight Diana's life was going to change forever, just as her own had. She felt guilty for not trying to stop Diana, but she's known Diana since elementary school, and she knows that once Diana decides something, it's decided forever. She wished she'd snapped some pics of the seduction earlier. During the last couple of bachelorette parties, she'd taken pictures with her phone to document her friend's behavior in the hopes of keeping her from making the same mistake she'd made. She wanted to show Diana what she looked like in public, as a married woman cheating on her husband. Now it seems like she took these photos to take Diana's husband and make him hers. Maybe that's how it is, she thought. Diana didn't dance with her boyfriend tonight. She looked at her friends and said she'd see them later. With that, she greeted the man, and they turned and left the club. Back at her small, unkempt apartment, Diana felt butterflies in her stomach. In 21 years, this was the first guy she'd had other than Jerry. She told him to undress her, and he obliged as she reached for his fly. Her companion noticed that her wedding ring was missing. "Put on the rings. I want to see them in your hand when you touch me," Diana replied. "I can't. Jerry took them when he kicked me out of the house last weekend." "Why'd he do that? Were you with someone else?" She started getting defensive. "No, he overheard me talking to my friends about how I couldn't wait for us to have an intimate relationship, so he snatched my rings and kicked me out." She noticed that this guy suddenly lost interest in her. Maybe Rose is right, and he only wanted to have a night with her because she's married, and the man is driven by his fetish. "Don't you want to make love to me?" He looked at her. She's hot, but if she feels good, he'll never get rid of her, especially since she's married. He's not interested in her as a woman who needs a cheating wife. If I can get her so easily, then who can't? He thought. Here's the thing. Tonight, I'll give you what you want. You want him, and I know it. But after we have intimate relations, you'll have to take a hike. I'm not interested in you hanging around here trying to be my girlfriend, and I'm not your boyfriend. I seduce married women because I don't need affection. He said all this while grinning. He took off his pants and threw them on the sofa. He unbuttoned his shirt and added it to his trousers. He wasn't as fit as Jerry, but she didn't care. She knew what she wanted. Diana knelt in front of him. After a few minutes, he pushed her away and led her to his bed. She started to take off her clothes as fast as she could, and now she was standing in front of him, naked. He pushed her backwards onto the unmade bed. "I know you liked it," he said, smiling at her. Then he went into the bathroom and closed the door. She felt sad and disappointed. Sure, it was big, but the experience reminded her of her first time. Disappointment is the best word for it. As she drove back to Steph's apartment, she thought about how it had only been an hour since she left the club with him. If she had a night with Jerry, she'd be lying in his arms after. She could go back to the club and meet the girls, feeling sad and lonely, with tears streaming down her cheeks. She hailed an Uber to get back to Steph's place, which was empty. Jerry spent a week getting ready for his new life. Some people thought he was cold, but that's how he dealt with problems. He locked them in small boxes. His business was successful, so he was able to delegate work and focus on what he needed to do. He knew Diana would be served at work on Monday. He wasn't looking to be spiteful in the settlement he came up with. They had been together for over 20 years, and she had been a good wife and mother to their son until she decided she deserved the slumber party time she already had every week. Ever since he put in the pool, the girls would hang out every weekend and get wasted. He didn't mind too much, but sometimes he got tired of them being there every weekend while Diana was having a new experience. So Jerry drove 2 hours to have dinner with their son on his college campus. He wanted to tell his son about the divorce, just like his dad had. He figured his dad had prevented future trouble by freeing his mom to find her new happiness. He knew his mom had a different opinion. The next day, Saturday, after lunch, Jerry went home with his son. He hoped that this visit wouldn't affect the boys' grades this semester. Steph asked Diana after dinner about her night with her lover. "Was everything as you thought?" Diana said she was disappointed after Candace's lustful tales and Steph's tales of her exciting life as a single woman. She thought she was going to have the best night of her life, but she was disappointed. Steph insisted that she needed the right partner, and she had just such guys. She said there are 2 guys she's dating, and they both knew about each other. Steph was sure she could get them to go wild with her tonight. The 2 couples dined and danced before heading back to Steph's place. It was clear Steph had a thing for one of the guys, but the other one was cool with getting D. They chilled on the sofa, and he was a good kisser. She was into his touch. Diana told him no, but he ignored her. She was soon disappointed. Is this her future? Is this how it's always been for her with guys who only seem to care about their own pleasure and not hers? She got up, went to the bathroom, and started to shower. She felt dirty, and all she wanted to do was wash it off. She'd had sex with 2 different guys in 2 nights, and both of them had been disappointing. The warm water felt nice, and as she lathered up, a cool breeze told her that someone had entered the shower with her. He grabbed her from behind. "Hey baby, I love shower sex. Do you like having this in the shower?" He pulled her towards him. She couldn't push him away because he was bigger than her. She reached behind the shower curtain for something to pull him away. Her fingers found a soap dish on the lip of the windowsill. She grabbed it with her left hand and smashed it on his head. The soap dish shattered into dozens of little pieces. He was stunned and fell to the shower floor. Diana climbed over him and stood on the toilet seat, screaming for Steph while Diana stood on the toilet seat, waiting to be rescued. Meanwhile, Jerry was sound asleep on the couch. He's been sleeping there ever since she kicked him out. He could sleep in their bed, but he couldn't forget that she might have had other lovers in their bed. He woke up from a knock on the front door. He was wearing only boxers and a t-shirt and hesitantly walked towards the door. If he had looked through the peephole, he probably wouldn't have opened the door. When he opened it, there stood the queen of debauchery herself, Candace. She was a real looker, a petite woman with a hot cheerleader body. Like Jerry, she had her own business, a fitness franchise where she personally trained overweight men and women. But Jerry always thought of her as a rotten apple that looked beautiful on the outside, but was rotten on the inside. It was already past 1 in the morning, and she was standing there in a little black dress. Jerry frowned. "What do you want?" She smiled her seductive smile that always worked. "I thought you might need some good intimate time, and I'd be happy to help." She ran her fingers over his face, across his chest, and down. "Very good, Jerry. It'll be great." "Never in my life," Jerry said, removing her hand. "Go home. It won't happen." She looked a bit flustered. "Come on. I heard you're not together anymore, and this will be fun." Jerry pushed her back out of the doorway and closed the door in Candace's face. She smiled to herself as she walked back to her car. She liked it when a man played hard to get. On Sunday morning, Jerry did something he hadn't done in 20 years. He cleaned himself up and went to church. He was raised Baptist, but he wasn't sure he wanted to listen to a fire and brimstone preacher. There's a non-denominational church a few miles away. He got there a few minutes before the service started and picked a seat a few rows back. He sat in the middle of the row so that others wouldn't have to crawl over him to find a seat. The sermon was about letting God help you become the best person you can be so you can help others. Jerry felt touched and often felt like he wasn't doing enough for others. He's got it made, but he's never felt like he's done enough for others. He thought maybe he should become a mentor to young people and teach them to be successful, leading by example. He was feeling pretty good until he got home and saw Diana sitting on the steps. She jumped up and started screaming, "Where have you been?" "I said I'd called. I came to you, and my keys don't work, and the access code to the garage doesn't work either." He replied calmly, "If you really want to know, I went to church." He joked, "Maybe instead of sleeping around, you should find a church. I'm sure there are men there you can have a night with." She followed him inside after he unlocked the door. Diana wasted no time in saying that she wanted to go home, that she can't live with Steph, that her lifestyle is unproductive. "No, you can't live here. I just let you go, since you were planning on breaking that promise anyway. By the way, what was the end of that you just had to have?" "I don't." Diana didn't finish. She wanted to say, "I didn't like it," but Jerry finished for, "Don't lie. I've known you for too long, and I can tell you've had this since you left. There's no going back now. You know how I felt." Diana's thoughts went back to last year when she told him she wanted to go to a bachelorette party with her friend. He was pretty blunt about how he thought it would lead to her cheating on her marriage. It might be the first night or the 100th, but she'll do it eventually. She didn't want to admit he was right. He told her it was wrong for married ladies to act like single. It'd just lead to trouble, and that could mess with his business. His clients might find out that she's his wife and take their business elsewhere because of how she acts. Diana tried to hug him, but he stopped her. "I'll ask Tracy, my new assistant, to make a list of safe apartments you can afford tomorrow. I'll have her send them to your work email. Then you can pick up your bedroom furniture and whatever else you want." She was crying. saying that she can't live on what she earns. You've got to help me. Jerry stood his ground. You never needed to work. I earn a lot of money, but you wanted a job. You've saved nothing, and you're spending your paycheck as soon as you get it. This isn't sustainable. With the divorce, you're going to have to balance the budget. And there are a lot of families out there making less than you. You walked her outside to the car. You'll be served on wedding day, at work, unless you want to go to Ab's office on Tuesday to be served quietly. On wedding day at work, Diana got the documents. She hoped Jerry wouldn't divorce her, but she'd lived with him for over 20 years and always got her way. But now, she realized that the Jerry who loved her was different from the Jerry who decided not to love her. There was a lot of drinking at Cheryl's house on Wednesday night. The girls got together to cheer Diana up. Cheryl, Steph, and Diana were drinking a lot and eating little, and Candace showed up with a bottle of wine and a bottle of Jerry. I'm not sure what kind of party this is. They kept drinking and getting flirty, and Candace said she was going to seduce Jerry. The ladies, tipsy as they were, burst into laughter. Cheryl said, "Girl, Rose was first." "Huh," Candace said, standing up and touching her toned body. "Does she really think her mommy body can compete with this?" Candace admitted that she tried to seduce Jerry, but he rebuffed her. "What's on your mind, Diana? I could marry Jerry and never have to work again. I'd have plenty of momentum with him, and I'd be living comfortably," she said, grinning. "Or maybe I'll marry him, live with him for a while, and then get divorced. I mean, I can't be faithful, you know?" For the first time, Diana started to realize what she'd done while she started drinking even more. Meanwhile, Jerry let Rose and her kids into the house. She was holding a casserole dish. "Thought you might need a friend tonight." They ate on the terrace. After they ate, Rose and Jerry talked about how he felt about everything that had happened since he told Diana to leave. Her kids were playing basketball in a basket in the backyard. "I'm sure you know the others are with her now to help deal with the shock of today's service, and I would like to be with you. Thanks for your friendship." She didn't stay long. The kids had school the next day. But before leaving, Rose kissed Jerry tenderly on the lips. He smiled as their lips parted, a seductive kiss that lasted just the right amount of time. Jerry woke up sometime between 1:30 and 2 a.m. to a drunk call from Diana. She was crying and yelling at him. "How could you do this to me? Doesn't he love her enough?" For him, this meant that it was Diana who didn't love him enough not to go to clubs and do God knows what while she was there. He'd hang up, and she'd call back. After the third ring, he disconnected. "We'll call her tomorrow when she's more sober." Jerry waited until 11 before calling her. She didn't apologize for the calls yesterday. He asked why she didn't call Tracy back about the apartment she found for Diana. She didn't respond to that, but said she wanted to go home. "No, I know that you had a night with other men, so our marriage is over. You couldn't even wait to be served before having fun. I hope you got everything you wanted. A week, just a week, and you could wait to try other men." He heard a knock on the door and looked up to see Rose with a paper bag in her hands. He raised his hand. "Hey, give me a sec to end this call." Exhaling, he continued, "Diana, you wanted other men, and I'm giving you the life of a single divorced woman, which is what you obviously want. So, just sign the papers. If you don't meet Tracy tomorrow, I'll take care of the apartment issue myself. I'll cover the first 2 months of rent. That's all. I gotta run. Rose just surprised me with lunch." He ended the call. By 6 o'clock, Stephanie was fed up with Diana, telling her to just give it up. "Rose isn't stealing your man. You don't want to hear this, but you were the one who wanted to try that guy, and you got him. What did Jerry get? He realized that he didn't have what his wife of 20-some years wanted. Sorry, sis, but no man wants that. The Jerry I know won't take you back. Diana didn't want to hear that. But you didn't try to stop me. Stephanie looked at her strangely. Why? When you want something, you go and get it. You've always been like this. Besides, I'm A, and I know it. You messed up, and now you want Jerry to act like it never even happened. You should be glad he doesn't know about the other things you did. Change into something nice, and let's cheer you up. 2 weeks went by, and Diana had a bunch of new lovers who turned out to be a letdown. On Monday night after work, Bert and Cheryl took Diana to see the apartment Jerry had rented for her. He furnished the apartment with furniture from the master bedroom and all her favorite things from home. Everything was painted and cleaned, and the fridge was full. Bert was a good husband and brought her clothes into the apartment. He hung up the clothes that needed to be hung and opened the plastic containers with the folded clothes inside. He left and came back with food. They spent the evening with Diana so Cheryl could ease her loneliness on her first night in the apartment. Cheryl knew her friend was trying to drag out the divorce in the hope that her husband would miss her so much that he'd forgive her and take her back to her fairy tale life. She would never have told Diana that she knew Rose had lunch with Jerry several times a week. The longer this goes on, the worse Diana gets. Cheryl suggested having a housewarming bachelorette party at Diana's new apartment on Friday. Rose answered the call, and it was Cheryl. Hey, sis, we're meeting at Diana's new place on Friday. She said, please come. I haven't seen you in weeks. She paused. The kids' dad hasn't been picking them up lately. He works out of town, so I haven't had the chance to go out somewhere. It was a little lie. She did visit Jerry, but she was only there for like an hour. I was just testing him. She knew he wouldn't go out with her. I'll see if I can find someone to stay with them on Friday. They're just teenagers, after all. They might be left alone for a bit, but I'll need to get my security deposit back someday. They'll probably fight and destroy the house. Jerry was excited about his dinners with Rose. She knew from their friendship that he rarely left his office for lunch. He's a stickler for lunch from home, which is probably why he's been so successful. It's the little things. She works just 2 blocks from Jerry's office. It wasn't every day, but he enjoyed her company. She's Diana's only friend that he's cool with. He only tolerates the others to keep the peace. On Thursday, Rose asked if you could watch the kids so she could go to Diana's housewarming party. He said of course. Jerry was fond of her kids. She had 3 boys, 13, 15, and 16, who looked up to Jerry as an uncle. He was a cool uncle who played parent-pair basketball with them when they came to visit. He really missed playing basketball with his son. These guys helped him fill that void. Rose didn't have to drop the kids off because Jerry showed up and took them to the baseball fields and go-kart racing. She paused and took a breath before knocking. Come in, she heard through the door. Peering through the door, she saw Cheryl and Steph with their glasses of wine raised. But before she could walk through the doorway, Candace pushed past her into the room. Hey, Candace said. She was already feeling the pressure. She heard the toilet flush, and Diana came into the room. There was tension between Rose and Diana, but they kept it to themselves for now. After a few drinks, everyone started to feel more relaxed, and Cheryl suggested that they help Diana get back to Jerry. This made Rose feel bad. She had strong feelings for Jerry, not just the idea of him, but the actual person. A tipsy Candace told the girls that Diana couldn't get him back until she had slept with him. She said that when she paid him, he felt nice in her hands, not too big but not too small, her perfect size for optimal pleasure, as she called it. Rose called her out for talking like that, but Candace replied, "Oh, that's right." She said that little mommy has plans for Jerry. Do you think you can get him? Mommy needs a daddy for her kids, and he's an empty nest. Why should you raise your kids? She knew her friends were superficial. Her ex always liked to point this out to her, but hearing Candace talk about her Jerry like that was too much. Before she could even argue with Candace, Diana pulled back her hair and shouted at her, "Stay away from my husband, Rose. He's mine, so back off. I've seen you leaving his office a bunch of times when I've driven by during lunch." Diana pushed Rose towards the door. At the open door, Rose finally felt she could speak her mind to her friends for the first time ever. Cold. "I get it, Diana, but he's not yours anymore. You ditched him for other guys. He doesn't deserve this. Remember, I know how many guys you've dated at bachelorette parties. Steph says you've slept with a lot of guys since you moved in with her. Cheryl, you think you can have a boyfriend anytime because Bert knows his wife is taller than him, and that may be true, but cheating is not okay. I learned this the hard way. You never had kids because you didn't want a mom body, but it's an honor you'll never know. Steph's so shallow she'll never marry. No man needs a woman like her. They might invite you on dates, but they won't need you for anything else. And Candace, if every guy you slept with could stick out of your body like a needle, you'd look like a porcupine." After a pause, she continued, "I'm not chasing Jerry. I'm just trying to give him the space he needs. But now the cards are on the table. I'll come for your husband, Diana. When he becomes mine, he won't think about either of you again. I've learned from my own experience that a good husband is very, very difficult to find. He won't regret being with me. I promise." And with those words, she took off, slamming the door behind her. Rose went home and sat in her empty apartment for half an hour. The boys were with Jerry, and she didn't want to be alone. She took out her phone and dialed Jerry's number. He told her to come down. Their turn at the baseball practice booth would be in half an hour. He joked that his fifth place hurt after go-karting. She found him and her kids in the outfield baseball booth. She plopped down on a bench behind the fence. Her older sons didn't need his help, but the youngest did. She smiled as she watched her dad spend time with them. Jerry smiled the whole time. His smile got even bigger when he saw her watching them. He motioned for her to come inside. He quietly handed her a baseball helmet, and she shook her head, but the kids insisted, so she took a bat and swung at some pitches, missing every time. Jerry slid behind her and took the bat off her shoulder. He told her to bend her knees and helped her swing for the next pitch. Surprisingly, she hit the ball. It wasn't a home run, but it wasn't a strikeout either. She felt so safe with Jerry pressed against her from behind, helping her prepare for her swing. She felt her pulse begin to quicken. She never managed to hit the ball on her own, but it was the most fun she'd had in years. She laughed until she cried. She'll always remember this evening as the one when she realized that she loved Jerry. Jerry smiled as he followed Rose's car to her apartment. She told him he didn't have to follow them home, but he just smiled. He helped her get the boys and carry their things into the apartment, and then asked if she wanted to have breakfast with him the next morning, and she agreed. While driving back home, he got a message from Bert. It seems the girls left Diana's apartment to go to the club. They got stopped on the way and ended up at a sobering station. He told Bert that everything depended on him, but he decided that they needed a lesson and didn't pull them out. It looks like driving while intoxicated increased your insurance. He wondered if Diana was the driver. Over breakfast, Jerry and Rose were getting to know each other better. She filled him in on the previous evening at Diana's and what she said there. He thought it was funny that she told them off. He was curious about why she left so early, but hoped it was for his sake. He knew it was selfish, but everyone wants something like that. He wanted to be honest with her. I'll be honest with you. Last night when I held you in the batting cage, it felt right. I think maybe you felt it too. She nodded in agreement. I felt safe and protected. She blushed as she said this. To be honest, I already fell in love with you many years ago. Well, I think I'm in love with you. I know you're married, but I'll wait for you. She dug into her purse and pulled out an envelope. I know I have a story, and you know what it is. The day you kicked Diana out, I said I'd do anything to be with you. I knew you'd need something specific to show my intentions. The following Monday, I got tested for STDs. You'll see that I'm clean. To be honest, I haven't had intimate relations with a man for over a year. He was so proud of her honesty. Rose, I know you messed up. I was there in the days before your divorce, and I saw the regret. I knew you were a good person, but I still didn't understand why you continued nightly dates when it led to divorce. She looked down. You don't understand now, and I hope you never do, but when you're divorced with kids, you can't date. You want to feel loved, even when you know you're not right for each other, just right for now. I could find a better man. Why did you let Diana go on overnight dates with you? He knew she'd be honest. She reached across the table and took his hands. I tried to convince her not to do it, but you know that if she wants something, it'll happen. I didn't plan on leaving with any of the guys, but I knew I had to be there to help her avoid the same mistakes I made. He smiled. You seem to suck at this job, he said, holding her hand across the table. I feel like we have a connection, and that day on the terrace when I said that I would date you, I was serious. You've always been the best of her friends, and I enjoy her conversations. I'm really looking forward to our lunches and phone calls. You tell me off when I say stupid things and make me laugh. You're also a great mom. Rose looked worried as she spoke. I feel the same way, and I'm being honest. But look at me. I'm not like others. I don't hit the gym, and I get judged for having a mom body. I don't have the money for this. It's tough to feed 3 teenage boys with what I earn. Child support doesn't even cover their food. He squeezed her hands with his. You look great. You're gorgeous and curvy. I'm into curvy women, he said with a playful smile. I'm excited to see those curves. The waitress brought their check and smiled at the comment. He took the check from the table as they stood up, looked at her, and smiled. So, do you have any plans for today? Rose pressed her whole body against him and, rising lightly, kissed him on the lips. Well, there's something I haven't done for a long time. It's been over a year now, Jerry thought to himself as he stood in his underwear and looked at himself in the bathroom mirror. He was about to have sex with the first woman in 25 years other than his soon-to-be ex-wife. After he found out that Diana was unfaithful, he felt insecure. Rose seemed like a hot woman to him, and his dad would have said a lot in those areas where he should. He took a deep breath and opened the door, expecting to find her sitting on the bed waiting for him. But when he opened the door, he was surprised to find her lying under the covers, pulled up to her chin. Jerry was a bit disappointed, but he figured he could turn her around and mentioned it as he pulled back the top covers and moved into Rose's bed. You can turn me around another time. When I feel more comfortable, this is something new for me. and I don't want you to be disappointed in my body. Jerry pressed his body against hers without clothes. The warmth of her full, large chest felt exciting on his skin. You can never disappoint me with your body, no matter what the ex looks like. She looks like that for herself, not for me. I've always been into curvy girls. He placed his right hand on her left leg and slowly moved it along her thigh and up to her under chest area, then returned it to her hip and moved it down, touching her plump fifth place. He leaned down and kissed her for the first time. Her breath caught in her throat as they kissed, exploring each other tenderly until the warmth building below them grew into flames. Their kisses got more and more passionate, like they wanted to devour each other. She rolled onto her back, and he threw his right leg over her as if holding her up as they continued to kiss passionately. His right hand moved up her soft belly, over her rib cage, to her ample chest. She reached down and touched his stomach, then found what she was looking for in his boxers. She was exhausted, so she collapsed onto his chest, breathing heavily. She realized that it had been too long since she'd done something like this, or rather, not like that. She had never had anything like this. Her ex and most of the men she dated after her divorce never tried to please her. These guys, including her ex, only wanted to get off on their own. She knew that was what men wanted, but it never gave her pleasure. Jerry put her on top of him and hugged her tightly. He would always cherish this moment. He felt like a man again. He didn't really understand what Diana did to him, but he knew it had an effect on him. He kept hugging her as they drifted off to sleep. Jerry was the first to wake up. He looked at Rose lovingly. His mind had completely changed. Rose was Diana's friend, a fun girl, but Rose was the mature woman he thought he might fall in love with. He enjoyed spending time with her and her boys. He had no idea how much he missed being a dad. He gave her a kiss to wake her up. "Rose," he said for the first time, "I have no idea where this will lead, but I don't want to see any other women but you. I can't assume you feel the same way, but I'd love it if you did." She kissed him. "I wouldn't want anything better." Rose smiled until she saw the alarm clock. "Oh, it's already been more than an hour. The boys are gonna be worried." As Jerry got out of bed, he caught sight of her body for the first time and was pleased. She might have thought she was a bit overweight, but he thought she was perfect. "Can I use your shower?" "Of course," he said, thinking about joining her in the shower, but knowing that being a mother was more important at the moment. He didn't stop her from getting dressed, but he walked her to the car and kissed her. "I'd like you to bring the boys in a couple of hours. I want to be sure that they don't mind the fact that I'm dating their mom," he said. She smiled warmly. When Rose got back with her boys, she saw that Jerry had hamburgers on the grill and potato salad, beans, and relish on the table. After they ate, Jerry pulled the boys aside while she cleared the table. They sat around the fire. "Guys, I want to talk to you like men. I really like your mom and would like to date her romantically if that's okay with you. It's important that you approve because I really like you too. Can I date your mom?" The three guys looked at each other. No man had ever asked them such a question before. The two younger ones looked at their older brother and nodded. The eldest son, the owner of the house, looked at Jerry. "Yes, sir, we would like that." Jerry stood up, and the boys stood up, and he hugged them. Jerry heard the younger one ask, "Will you be our new dad?" He hugged them even tighter. "If that's what you want, I'd be honored." Rose started crying as she watched this happen. She knew her boys needed a man in their lives, someone to be a good example for them when they grew up. She reached for a tissue to wipe away her tears as she watched the younger one grab a basketball from the closet and run towards the basketball court. While Jerry and his brothers waited to play a regular game of doubles, Rose put away a trash bag filled with scraps from their meal. Then she heard the doorbell ring. "Jerry, someone's at your door while you're playing basketball," she said, but he didn't hear her. She wiped her hands on a kitchen towel, walked through the patio doors into the house, and headed for the front door. The doorbell rang again. As she opened the door to greet Diana, Rose fell backwards when Diana shoved her into the house. "What are you doing in my house?" Diana growled at her. Rose stood up and pushed Diana back a step. "This isn't your house anymore. This is Jerry's house. You live in an apartment on Richard Street." She remembered how she'd kicked her out last night. As Diana walked past Rose, she looked for Jerry. "Where's my husband? I was stuck in prison all night. He had to come and get me out." Rose hurried to intercept Diana, who came face to face with her. "Why do you think he had to get you out of prison? He's my husband. This is his responsibility." "No, he didn't have to get you out of the sobriety center. It's your responsibility not to get arrested for public drinking. Take responsibility for your life, Rose." She was angry at her old friend. Diana hurried from room to room, but Rose stayed behind her. "I know why you were here, but it won't work. You left him, and I'm trying to be there for him, so he doesn't go down the same dark path my ex did." She put her hands on her hips and looked into Diana's eyes. "You're in the same spot I was 3 years ago. You messed up and lost your husband because you did stupid things a married woman shouldn't do, and you'll pay the price for it. Lonely is a hard place to be. Every night, I come home to an empty apartment, missing the loving sounds of my husband and kids. I'm lucky to have kids, but your son's all grown up, and your husband's divorcing you. It's going to be tough. You're going to be lonely, and at 45, you're stuck at home on weekday evenings while you wait for Friday and Saturday nights when you can find some guy, anyone who'll warm your bed. I didn't plan this, but I made love to Jerry this morning." She raised her hand. "You and I both know something. We both know he's an incredible lover. He's so caring, so passionate." She smiled to herself. "This is such a rarity," he said. "I'm so stupid. You're so right. He's wonderful, and he's the best lover I've ever had. I forgot about it. I thought I'd have an adventure he'd never know about, and I'd get to try something better than just being intimate, something that happens once in a lifetime." She paused. "I already had it," Diana whispered. Rose walked to the patio door. "Jerry's outside with the boys. I can go get him," Diana said, standing next to her friend and watching the basketball go through the hoop from Jerry's throw. "He's a great dad. I've forgotten how much I enjoy watching him play basketball," she thought to herself. "You love him?" "Yes," Rose said. "I want you to know that today was our first time. I don't know if he loves me as much as I love him, but if he chooses me, I'll spend the rest of my life making him happy. We're both going through menopause soon, and I know it'll change things. But Jerry seems like a guy who'll understand and find a way to make it work for us." Diana sobbed. "I actually came here today to seduce him again, to make love to him one last time, even if it's miserable in him. If he makes love to you, it's over, and he's moving on. I know how he does everything. He wouldn't do this if I had the chance." Diana turned and walked back to the door. She stopped at the door and turned around. "Tell him I'll find the lawyer and sign the papers." Rose told Jerry about Dee's visit and that her lawyer would contact his. He gathered her and the boys and sent them home. He gave her a tender kiss and closed the car door. 7 months later, Diana asked for a short meeting with Jerry and his lawyer before they went to court. Jerry knew Diana needed some closure. She asked for forgiveness for being selfish and touchy, and for forgetting how incredible he was. She said she regretted hanging out with girls. She knew he never wanted her to do that, and she told him, "Diana, I tried to explain to you that married women can't act like unmarried women. I knew you weren't faithful to me at the bachelorette parties. You were always seen by someone you didn't notice. Over the years, I've gotten photos and text messages from people who saw you in clubs and restaurants, but I chose to ignore it because I loved you. But enough is enough. When I came home that Saturday and heard you talking about how you were going to get that guy, I knew it was all over for me. If you don't want me, then let him have you." He stood up. "Have a nice life, Diana. You'll always be in my life. We have a son, and there will be times like birthdays and holidays when we see each other. I'll be polite and friendly. I'll be available in case of emergency. But at the end of the day, we're not going to be sleeping in the same bed again. I've always been a one-woman man, and that's not going to change." He closed the door behind him, and Diana burst into tears. What's your take on the situation our current protagonist's in? Would you do the same? Let us know in the comments. See you in the next video.